These are the top 20 times when Thor went God mode in the movies.
It's like they're lining up. Well, they're excited.
We're kicking things off with the crazy Hydra invasion opening that made us believe Age of Ultron was going to be the best Avengers movie ever. That statement may be up for debate, but there's no questioning how awesome it was to see Thor pulling off a combo with the Captain. Honestly, the God of Thunder is a bit wasted on fighting normal human beings because what on earth are they going to do to bother him? Our man was casually taking down his opponents like they were chess pieces.
Loki's scepter must be here. Strucker couldn't mount this defense without it.
However, this is the MCU during its peak era, so the audience was given a bonus move when Thor and Steve Rogers got together for a crazy combo that knocked out a whole bunch of Hydra soldiers in an instant. We saw this before in the first Avengers movie when Captain America tried to stop the fight between Thor and Iron Man, so it was nice to see the both of them making use of what they learned from that encounter. One might even say it was a feat worthy of the gods. Man, I really miss those days when $1.4 billion at the box office used to be considered average for an Avengers film.
Enhanced? He's a blur. All the new players we faced, I've never seen this. In fact, I still haven't.
Dead! And that guy, and that guy, and whoever that is, and Heimdall, and his brother. And his brother again.
Up next is a rather interesting montage. The TV region doesn't discriminate against any body types, but come on. We got to see Thor going from dad bod back to god bod in a quick sequence that highlighted several key moments. Of course this was going to make it to the list. Yes, I'm not going to deny that the part where he trains with the spaceship looks awfully similar to Superman dragging the massive Earthship, but hey, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right? Also, apart from the insane training sequences, what was really badass was how Korg narrates the whole story as if it's some kind of legendary tale. Well, considering Thor's age, it's not much of a stretch, is it? But what this scene also did was highlight something else about the God of Thunder. We got to see his Riz game cranked up to 1,000 as he got with quite a few women here. Imagine getting cozy with a wolf woman while on top of a woman wolf. That's unlimited aura right there, isn't it? Of course, it's not like this is our first time seeing his powers of attraction. Remember the train scene from Dark World? Yeah, Mjolnir's not the only one who's drawn to his presence, if you know what I mean.
Okay. Come on, Stormbreaker. Back to work. People are dying. See you down there.
Now let's take a look at our man's long-range capabilities. Taking out the first wave of Chitauri army seemed like child's play to Thor, especially after he got himself the perfect platform to channel his powers. The tower getting electrified was obviously a visual gem, but then seeing how easily the God of Thunder was able to destroy multiple Chitauri soldiers was a great experience. Iron Man needed to use a lot of calculation and some heavy weaponry to take out a Leviathan, but here Thor brutally annihilates one of them with the same move. He didn't even need to focus a separate beam on it. Yeah, this should have been a good indicator of how strong he really is. Watching this in the theaters was a special moment. Everyone was cheering when they saw this moment, even though I'm sure a lot of them may not have even heard of Thor before the MCU was a thing. Also, I'm not a science expert, but I believe there was some merit to using the tower in order to amplify his abilities. Maybe it's like how a lightning rod works. But hey, don't hold me to that statement, it is just a guess.
I accept your surrender.
In at number 17 is a brutal massacre with minimal effort. It's basically an abrupt ending to a promising start during the battle in Vanaheim, shown in the opening sequence of Thor: The Dark World. Our man's busy flexing his powers as usual, but then a stone giant decides to come in and challenge him to a fight. I'm sure he must have thought he was going to give some trouble to his opponent, but perhaps he didn't watch the previous MCU films, which should have been enough for him to understand he was way out of his league here. I like the whole moment of WTF as the stone giant was presented as some kind of unstoppable foe, the way he was walking up to Thor with all that confidence. Sadly for him, not only did that same confidence get shattered, but so did his whole body. Yeah, it was hilarious for sure, but it makes you wonder how dangerous the God of Thunder actually is. Man, they nerf him so much when he's with the other Avengers because they know he can pretty much do everything by himself if he was actually allowed to go all out by the writers.
Heimdall, when you're ready.
Okay, now it's time to whip out some mind-boggling feats. Here we've got ourselves some country-level destruction thanks to a combo with Iron Man. Looks like Thor was really up for teamwork in Age of Ultron, eh? First Captain America, and now our very own Tony Stark. Of course, this one was a much bigger achievement because, you know, the two of them blew up a freaking country together. Yeah, this isn't some building or even a particular area. It's an entire country that has like cities and states and stuff like that. The grand finale of the second Avengers film may have polarized some viewers at first, but as time passes by, I think we can say this was a peak display of power levels from both Iron Man and Thor. Of course, the God of Thunder was pretty much needed to strike the decisive blow. Man, what a blow it was.
Thor, on my mark.
Let's not forget that he also took a good chunk of the damage caused by this demolition as well. Jesus Christ, this was an obscene display of power, and I must say, the visuals were absolute cinema. What on earth happened to this kind of CGI, Marvel? Did you put it in a vault and then forget the combination to it?
Thor, on my mark.
In at number 15 is a great example of sharing is caring. Yes, Thor has so much energy that he can actually power his own army if he wanted to. It's a neat trick that we haven't really seen before other than that one time he combined with Iron Man to give us the coolest looking blast in all of the MCU, only for it to be wasted on Thanos' stupid Megasword. Okay, I've ranted about that enough already, okay, so let's just get back to this scene, alright? Helping the kids out was cool and all, but did anyone else notice how he sneakily peeked at the others when he said this power boost was for a limited time only? Probably one of the only 2 or 3 moments in the entire film that actually made me laugh, to be honest. But yeah, on a serious note, this scene did give me chills because it feels larger than life. It also develops Thor's character to a level where he's not one looking up to his father anymore, but rather now he's the one slowly taking his place. Yeah, I'm glad they kept this scene in the movie because it was a much needed break from all the excessive goofiness. Up next is a brotherly combo that would make Vin Diesel proud. Putting off magic tricks might be Loki's speciality, but when Thor gets in on the act, it truly feels like two gods are working in perfect synergy. The Dark World doesn't get a lot of love, but that doesn't mean it isn't worthy of it, you know? Especially in today's day and age, where the average movie makes it look like a masterpiece in comparison. I can't stress enough on how awesome this whole sequence felt. The illusion of cutting off Thor's hand had all of us fooled, most importantly Malekith, but luckily this was just low-key, what Loki's version of Get Help would look like. The moment Thor brought Mjolnir to the scene, it felt like he was saying, call an ambulance, but not for me. The blast he unleashes to destroy the Aether was pretty cool too, although he didn't know it could reform itself. I guess I can let that slide considering how badass the whole sequence looked with him executing the plan perfectly. Plus, till that moment, it was as godly as a scene could get. Alright then, it's time for a Royal Rumble. Thor and Hulk have always been the subject of a debate, and the strongest Avengers have a go at each other to try and resolve it. This is the first MCU battle between these two overpowered brutes, but I think what's even more important to note is how popular it became. I mean, this clip alone has close to 500 million views on YouTube. Yeah, that's even more than the final battle of Jurassic World. Anyway, this match not only had a decisive victor, but it did a good job of showing us how strong the God of Thunder really is. After all, the Hulk is supposed to be the epitome of muscular power, but our boy Thor was managing to handle him pretty well despite taking some strong hits. The smack to the face with Mjolnir was definitely a cool moment, and I personally consider it to be the highlight. It takes a lot of guts to stand up to the angry green giant, but Thor went above and beyond to do a lot more than that. It shouldn't be all that surprising though, considering he's a literal god.
Your world and your family will be extinguished!
Coming in at number 12 is a hardcore battle between two ridiculously powered individuals. I feel this is an underrated final battle because people don't give the Dark World much credit. There were some tremendous feats of power and some blatant disrespect too, like the part where Thor blatantly throws his hammer at Malekith while he's trying to farm aura has got to be one of the biggest violations in the MCU. It's like Tony Stark levels of roasting, but then Thor did us all one better by blasting lightning at Malekith through the ground. Even when the villain blocks Thor's attack, the impact was enough to shatter everything around them. Now, this isn't something to be taken light. I really like how they highlight the God of Thunder's insane strength here, like when he cracks the ground upon landing, and these blows that create shockwaves. It does justice to his character, and yes, the final strike before Jane transported Malekith away was pretty epic. Just remember that this is a villain powered by an Infinity Stone, so Thor did pretty freaking well to defeat him even without the power of Stormbreaker. Also, I read somewhere that there was an alternate scene where Thor calls upon the lightning from all the realms and directs his power at Malekith to beat him. Man, that would have been so much cooler than what made the final cut. Up next is a whole range of impressive feats by a man newly renewed in strength and form. Also, judging by some of his actions, it looks like our man Thor is a fan of Jean-Claude Van Damme, specifically his love for doing splits in moving vehicles. But hey, that ain't even the start of how overpowered he is. Forget the funny quips like him riding Stormbreaker as if he's some wicked witch of the West. Just look how he effortlessly defeats all those rodent dudes and smashes their vehicles with zero effort, but maximum sass. It's like we're witnessing a much more powerful Thor as compared to the previous versions, as he simply looks unstoppable here. Like some of his attacks are just too cool to be in a movie like Love and Thunder. The spin kick strike in the tank gets me every freaking time. At one point, it felt like a martial arts movie, but with your enemies being giant space cars. The spin attack with Stormbreaker is easily my highlight. That was a peak move, and he should have used it with Thanos back in Avengers Endgame. Honestly, if they continued the movie with this kind of momentum, then it would have been a lot more entertaining than what we actually got. However, I'm not here to provide directing advice. I just enjoy the scenes that are worth enjoying. We're officially in the top 10 territory now, so let's crank up the entries a notch. Here we have Thor acting like the ultimate aura farmer, even though he's not doing much. At the end of the day, it's the vibe that you give off that matters, and in this particular moment, Thor looked like he could end the entire multiverse himself. Thanos had tons of plot armor to make him stronger than the 3 OG Avengers during this battle, but I'm not even considering that at all. The only thing that's on my mind is how Thor looks at the Mad Titan with a maniacal sense of vengeance as he summons both Mjolnir and Stormbreaker to the battle zone. Our man was locked in, and we were all awaiting something epic to unfold. It's such a cold moment in general, and we totally forget the fact that he's in his dad body era right now. Yeah, imagine being so full of coolness that people forget your entire character for this film was based off the dude from The Big Lebowski.
That knows not what it is lost, but only what it has been given.
In at number 9 is Thor taking on Surtur with such ease that you start doubting what you're seeing. I mean, if the pits of hell aren't enough to make Thor struggle, then I don't know what will. It's true that Surtur isn't in his prime form during the opening sequence, but he's no pushover here either. The man is still pretty dangerous and would have been a pain to tackle if you were anyone other than the God of Thunder. Thor instead just cracked jokes and made fun of him, after which he added to the emotional damage by destroying him as if it was just a minor inconvenience. There are some other notable achievements too, such as taking on the dragon and pinning it down with Mjolnir. Of course, how can I forget the epic spin attack he uses to defeat an endless horde of demons as if they're a bunch of annoying cockroaches. The main honor obviously goes to the combination of attacks he uses to reduce Surtur to just a clown, but I also want to shout out how he outran the dragons towards the end. We actually get to see almost all of Thor's powers here, which was quite dope if you ask me.
I know it's been a while, but I could really use a fast exit. Heimdall?
Coming to you next is another team up between Thor and Captain America. Man, the God of Thunder sure loves his combos, especially in this movie because it's his third time already, isn't it? Here, Thor shows off his baseball skills as he smacks Cap's shield away in a way that takes out a whole gang of Ultron's robots. It's a lot more valuable than any home run ever scored in the history of baseball, but there's also the solo stuff he does that makes this a special moment. I'd mentioned that Thor is wasted on opponents like Hydra's soldiers, but against competent robots, you could say that the God of Thunder would at least need to put in some effort. You know, a lot of us didn't really appreciate Thor in these earlier films because it was mostly after Ragnarok that we started paying more attention to him. Little did we know that he was always a boss man whenever he was on the screen. Sure, Ultron tries to spoil the fun, but he gets totally wrecked afterwards, so it doesn't affect this entry that much.
Thor. You're bothering me.
It's quite strange that the first Thor movie has only shown up now. Just like placements don't matter when it comes to creating a legacy, size doesn't matter when it comes to Thor fighting his opponents. We already saw what he did to the Stone Giant, but an even bigger flex is when he smashed the Frost Beast like it was nothing. Our man was already beating down all the Frost Giants like the NPCs they are, but the Frost Beast was presented like some kind of final boss. Even with that, the God of Thunder took it down with one strike and even struck a cool pose right after to remind us who he is. Sure, scenes like this one make me pause and turn my screen brightness all the way up, but it's fine as long as I'm entertained. Also, this is what happens when you go for the head, Thor. You already had the experience, my guy. It should have been pretty straightforward when you were dealing with Thanos. In at number 6 is the actual fully fledged fight between Thor and the Hulk. This battle does have a victor, although it's a shame that the angry green giant had to rely on cheating to win. Honestly, the reason why Thor lost is beyond any kind of logic, but we'll just focus on the best parts of the fight. You know, like when he sends the Hulk tumbling away with one strike? Yeah. This shocked audiences, not just in the arena, but also in the theaters. The MCU has never been the best when it comes to power scaling, so a lot of folks were surprised by this insane display of strength. Of course, comic book fans may have been a bit happy to see the God of Thunder live up to his name, but the most insane moment is when Thor unleashes that lightning burst that sent the Hulk flying. Yeah, if it was anybody else, our man would have just won with that attack. Now we're in boss mode territory. After all, we're covering how Thor rose in strength to be above even the Infinity Stones. Like, Thanos had violated him pretty bad in the opening of Infinity War, but you can't do that to the God of Thunder and not expect a retort. Thor did just that by equipping himself with freaking Stormbreaker and making Thanos briefly see his life flash before his eyes. Let me remind you once again that this is a villain currently hosting the highest amount of power in the MCU, and Thor cuts through his energy beam like he's a demon slayer. It was a brief encounter and the ending may not have been what we're all hoping for, but even so, this was an epic back and forth between two highly overpowered individuals. If Thor actually went for the head, then this would have easily been number 1 on the list.
You should have gone for the head.
Up next is an OG gem. Thor turns out to be the real destroyer here, as he takes down the imposter by bursting him open in divine fashion. Honestly, that alone was enough to make this a god mode entry, but consider the transformation too, because that's when he turns from an average dude to an actual god. It's a spectacular transition, and the resulting aura was way too cool to ignore. Our man wasn't messing around, and the way he dismisses the destroyer so effortlessly further cemented the fact that we hadn't seen anything remotely close to his true power level. Honest confession, I had no idea what to expect from his character when I first saw him, and even after he took down the Frost monster, I wasn't too convinced about how strong he'd be. Well, this scene changed all of that in a matter of seconds.
goddess of death. What were you the god of again?
Oh man, this was more thrilling than any Fast and Furious movie, but also had some severe disrespect for family. I mean, blasting your sister and making an entrance would seem extremely insensitive in most situations, but I suppose we can allow it this time, considering, you know, how Hela was trying to end Thor right before he awakened his inner thunder. Yeah, that lightning blast was an epic outburst of energy, and it's probably the closest we've gotten to a live-action Super Saiyan version from Dragon Ball. Anyway, this is just one half of the listing, because Thor makes an insane entry after this, farming all the aura that's available to be farmed. That one pose was all we needed to cement it as iconic. Add that background score and it's a clear winner no matter how you look at it.
Bring me Thanos!
Get ready for a saturation overload at number 2. Yep, it's the scene everyone has ingrained in their minds, especially at the TV region. The Wakanda entrance is a staple for Thor, and there'll never be a single video around him where I won't be including it. The surge of adrenaline you feel when you see this is indescribable. The joy and relief you feel when Thor smashes the ground is incomparable, and seeing him kick tons of butt right after is pretty satisfying as well. A lot of us may have forgotten about some of the moves he pulls afterwards, but they shouldn't be overlooked. Like, the way he attacks the ships was quite cool as well, but yeah, it's the entrance that steals the show with ease. Shout out to Rocket Raccoon and Groot too, although they're more invisible here than Drax when he stands so perfectly still.
Your haircut? Notice you've copied my beard. Robert!
It was a tough fight for number 1, but eventually I think I've made the right choice here. I mean, Thor is literally taking on a star to become the star of the show. This is as godly as things can get, especially because stars are factually celestial beings. I can't imagine how much that would have hurt, but then again, no human can they? It's a key moment that powers up our favourite god to the point where he can take on the big bad Thanos of the MCU. We all know what happens after this, but it's already been covered in the previous entry, so I'm not going to spend any time on it. What I can say though is that this is the kind of endurance that takes you to the top spot. Hope you liked the video. Please subscribe to the TV region, and here's another video that I know you're going to enjoy.